Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
When people think of Russia, they often imagine snow, the Kremlin's red walls, and soldiers in fur hats. But this picture is only a small part of the truth. Russia is not just a country, it is like a whole world by itself. It is a very big land with 190 different ethnic groups. They speak more than 100 languages and live across 11 time zones. This land reaches from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific Ocean, from very cold places to hot deserts. People here follow different religions like Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, often in the same areas. Long ago, a famous leader named Vladimir Lenin said Russia was a prison of nations. He used this strong phrase because Russia had taken control of many groups who had their own languages, religions, and ways of life. These millions of people never chose to be Russian subjects. So the main question is, how has this big state managed to keep so many different people with their own governments and cultures together for so long? After Lenin, another leader, Joseph Stalin, made this prison even stronger. Now President Vladimir Putin is doing the same. This story will explore Russia's deep past and its current state. We will begin with the time of the Mongol yoke, when invaders controlled parts of the land. We will then follow Russia's expansion until today's war in Ukraine, led by President Putin. We will look closely at the hidden internal borders of this empire. Our journey will show how many different nations live inside Russia, each with unique cultures and traditions, often hidden beneath the surface of one vast country. 2. How Russia grew big. Russia's story of growing big starts with a very bad defeat. In the 1200s, fierce warriors called Mongols came from Asia. They crossed frozen rivers and attacked many cities of Kievan Rus, an early Slavic state. Cities like Kiev were destroyed. Many people died. This time, about 240 years, is called the Mongol yoke because the Mongol rulers, the Golden Horde, controlled the Russian lands. Russian princes had to pay money and taxes to the Mongols. They even had to travel far to get permission to rule. But something strange happened. This bad time helped a small city called Moscow become powerful. When other Russian princes tried to fight the Mongols, the Prince of Moscow, Ivan I, helped the Mongols stop them. Because of this, the Mongols made Ivan I their main tax collector. This gave Moscow a lot of money and power. The main church also moved to Moscow. So Moscow grew stronger under Mongol rule. Many years later, in 1480, another prince, Ivan III, finally ended the Mongol rule without a battle. By then, Moscow was already a very strong state. After the Mongols, Moscow became Russia, and it started to grow very fast. In 1547, Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible, became the first Tsar. He wanted Russia to be a big empire. He conquered new lands, like the Khanate of Kazan and Astrakhan, which were Muslim lands. These victories were important because they opened the way to a huge land in the east, Siberia. Russia then began its own journey of colonization. While countries in Europe were sailing to America, Russia was moving east. Russian explorers and soldiers, called Cossacks, crossed the Ural Mountains and reached the Pacific Ocean in about 60 years. This was very fast. Russia did not create colonies far across the sea like Spain or England did in America. Instead, Russia made Siberia a direct part of its land. Local people in Siberia, like the Yakuts and Buryats, could keep their leaders and ways of life. But they had to accept Russian rule and pay taxes, often in valuable furs. This way, Russia included many different groups of people into its growing state. This method of integration was important. It meant Russia absorbed new cultures instead of just destroying them or letting them become separate countries later. This is how Russia created its large multi-ethnic map we see today. Later, under leaders like Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, Russia continued to expand. It took lands to the west, south, and into Central Asia. By the early 1900s, the Russian Empire was one of the biggest in the world. It had more than 100 different peoples living inside its borders. This long history of absorbing different cultures helped form the very diverse Russia we know now. The old Soviet Union. Lenin created the Soviet Union in December 1922. He wanted it to be a union of many republics. He said these republics had the right to leave, but this was only on paper. In truth, no republic could ever truly leave. This idea was a clever way to get different non-Russian groups to join the new Soviet state. It promised them equality if they were loyal to the new government. This helped the Bolsheviks win the Civil War. Later, Joseph Stalin changed this plan. He was in charge of national groups. Stalin drew the maps for the internal borders of the republics and other regions with a very clear goal. He often mixed different ethnic groups in the same area. This created problems and fighting between them. His goal was to make sure these groups were too busy with their own arguments to unite against Moscow. For example, in Central Asia, the borders between countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan were drawn to divide peoples who had lived together for centuries. These unnatural borders caused trouble for many years. Stalin also carried out a terrible policy: mass deportations. In 1944, during the war, he forced entire nations to move from their homes. He accused them of helping the enemy, often without real proof. People like the Chechens, Ingush, Kalmyks, and Crimean Tatars were sent far away to Siberia and Central Asia. They had to leave their homes quickly with little notice. Many thousands died during these harsh journeys because of the brutal conditions and lack of food. The Chechen-Ingush region was even taken off the map completely. These forced movements caused deep pain and hurt that lasted for generations. The memory of this tragedy later fueled the desire for independence in places like Chechnya. The Soviet Union was built like a complex system, much like a set of Russian nesting dolls. At the top were the big Union republics, such as the Ukrainian SSR, Belarusian SSR, and the large Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. But inside these, there were more layers. The Russian SSSR, for example, contained many autonomous republics. These were created as homelands for bigger ethnic groups, like the Tatars, Bashkirs, Buryats, or Yakuts. And within some of these autonomous republics, there were even smaller areas for tiny groups, called autonomous oblasts or autonomous okrugs. This complicated structure meant that many distinct nations were locked deep inside the Soviet administrative system. This way, Moscow kept strong control over everyone, making it hard for any single group to stand alone. 4. Power and control. After the Soviet Union dissolved, Russia's first president, Boris Yeltsin, faced many big problems. He wanted to keep the country together. In 1990, he told Russia's regions and republics, "Take as much power for yourselves as you can handle." Many regions took this offer seriously. They declared that their local laws were more important than national laws. For example, Tatarstan, a republic rich in oil, said it was a sovereign state in 1990. It refused to sign the main federal treaty. Later, in 1994, Tatarstan made a special agreement with Moscow. This gave it much control over its oil money and natural resources. Other regions, like Bashkortostan and Sakha, also got similar special rights. However, some regions wanted more than just special rights. They wanted full independence. Chechnya, a small republic in the North Caucasus, declared complete independence in 1991. The Chechen people had a long history of fighting for freedom and remembered the hard times, like when Stalin moved many of them from their homes in 1944. President Yeltsin decided to stop Chechnya by force. In 1994, he sent soldiers, starting the First Chechen War. This was a very brutal conflict. The Russian army thought it would be a quick victory, but it turned into a long, hard fight. In 1996, Russian forces had to leave Chechnya. The republic became independent for a time, though its final status was not truly solved. This war showed the difficult path when a republic tried to break away. When Vladimir Putin became president in 2000, he quickly changed course. He began to take back power from the regions and center it in Moscow. First, he created new large federal districts. Each district had a special representative, often from security services. Their job was to ensure that all local rules followed national laws and that Moscow's control was strong everywhere. Then, after the terrible Beslan school attack in 2004, Putin removed the right for regions to elect their own leaders. Now, the president chooses these leaders, and local governments must confirm them. This meant regional leaders had to be loyal to Moscow to keep their jobs. Cultural and language rights also slowly disappeared. In 2018, a new law made learning minority languages like Tatar or Chechen no longer mandatory in schools. They became only optional classes. In 2020, changes to the Constitution officially called ethnic Russians the state-building people of Russia. This sent a strong political message about who held power. By 2022, even Tatarstan's leader could no longer use the title president, a symbol of its past special status. The European Parliament has noted that Russia now acts like one strong central state, despite being called a federation. This raises an important question. Is Russia still truly a federation, or has it become something else? 5. Honey and chess. Russia holds many different peoples and places. Let us visit two of its unique republics. First, we travel to Bashkortostan in the southern Ural Mountains. It is home to about 4.1 million people. The Bashkirs, a Turkic people, are the main group here. Most people in Bashkortostan are Muslim, practicing Sunni Islam. It is a key part of Russia's Muslim regions. Bashkortostan is rich in oil. It gives Russia much of its gasoline and diesel fuel. But it is also famous for its wild honey. Beekeeping is an ancient tradition here, going back centuries. Bashkir honey has won awards around the world. People love its taste, from linden to wildflower types. Beekeeping is more than work. It is an important part of their culture. Honey festivals are common, and this special honey is sold widely, even to Europe and the Middle East. Next, we go to Kalmykia, located on the steppes between the Volga River and the Caspian Sea. It is unique in Europe. The Kalmyks are a Mongolic people whose ancestors came from Central Asia. This makes Kalmykia the only place in Europe where people of Mongolian origin live. With them came their religion, Tibetan Buddhism, so Kalmykia is the only European land where Buddhism is the main faith. In the capital, Elista, stands the golden abode of Buddha Shakyamuni, Europe's largest Buddhist temple. The Kalmyk people remember a hard past. In 1943, Joseph Stalin forced all Kalmyks to move far away to Siberia. About one-third of them, around 97,000 people, died during this terrible event. They could only return home in 1957, after Stalin had died. This left a deep mark on their society. Kalmykia also has a strange love for chess. From 1993 to 2010, the republic's leader was Kirsan Ilyumzhinov. He also led the World Chess Organization. Under him, chess became very important. In 1998, Elista hosted a world chess tournament, the 33rd Chess Olympiad. For this, a special area called City Chess was built. For a time, chess lessons were even mandatory in schools. Kalmykia is also known for its unique natural beauty. Every April, the dry steppes bloom with wild tulips. These beautiful flowers are the original kind that became famous in Holland. The Republic celebrates this with an annual tulip festival, drawing many visitors. These two republics, Bashkortostan and Kalmykia, show Russia's great diversity. Their cultures, like Bashkortostan's honey and Kalmykia's Buddhism, chess, and tulips, are distinct and separate from what is commonly known as Russian culture. 6. Ice and mountains. The Sakha Republic, also known as Yakutia, is a huge place. It is the largest region in the world that is not a country. Imagine a land of extreme cold, where thick frozen ground called permafrost lies deep under everything. The town of Oymyakon here holds the record for the coldest place where people live all the time. The capital, Yakutsk, is the world's coldest big city. But this cold land holds great riches. It has many diamonds and gold. A company named Alrosa finds most of Russia's diamonds here. The Sakha people are the original people of this land. They have their own Turkic language and unique culture. They celebrate a big summer festival called Yisyakh. In Yakutsk, they even make their own movies, known as Sakhiwood, showing their stories and traditions to the world. Now let's go to a very different part of Russia, Dagestan, in the North Caucasus Mountains. This place is special because so many different groups of people live here. They speak more than 30 different languages, which is more than almost anywhere else on Earth. The name Dagestan means land of mountains, and these tall mountains have helped people keep their different cultures for a very long time. Dagestan has a very old history. The city of Derbent is one of Russia's oldest cities, with strong ancient walls that guarded it for thousands of years. Most people in Dagestan are Muslim, with a strong history of Islamic learning. Today, Dagestan is known for its amazing fighters. Many world-class athletes in combat sports, like MMA, come from these mountains, showing their strength and spirit. These two regions, Sakha and Dagestan, are very different. One is a vast frozen land, the other a land of tall, diverse mountains. but both show how people can live and keep their unique culture strong, even in very hard places and after many historical conquests. Their stories are about people who stay true to themselves. 7. War and people. The war in Ukraine has shown a hard truth about Russia. Reports indicate that people from Russia's ethnic minority groups are dying in the war at much higher rates than ethnic Russians. This is especially true for republics like Buryatia and Tuva in eastern Siberia. Numbers clearly show this difference. For every 100,000 working-age men, about 240 from Buryatia and Tuva have died. In big cities like Moscow, this number is only about 3. This means a man from Buryatia is roughly 75 times more likely to die in Ukraine than a man from Moscow. The 8 regions with the highest death rates are all in Siberia and the Far East. For small indigenous communities, losing even a few young men can threaten their entire future. There are several reasons for this. Many of these republics, including Buryatia and Tuva, are among Russia's poorest regions. Joining the army offers much better pay, sometimes 5 times more than civilian jobs. A large payment for a killed soldier, over $150,000, can be life-changing in these poor areas. The army has often been a stable employer. However, many believe the government purposely targets minority men. When President Putin announced the call for new soldiers in September 2022, local leaders in Buryatia reportedly found men and gave them orders in the middle of the night. Recruiting from poor, faraway regions reduces the chance of protests in Moscow and St. Petersburg. The message from Moscow seems to be, minority citizens can fight and die for the empire, but their voices are not welcome in its politics. This war makes people think deeply about what it means to be Russian. In the Russian language, there are 2 important words for Russian. Ruski refers to ethnic Russians, who typically speak Russian and are Orthodox Christian. Rossiyski means a citizen of the Russian state, regardless of ethnicity. So a Tatar is Rossiyski, but not Ruski. An ethnic Russian is both. President Putin often uses Rossiyski to suggest equality, but recent constitutional changes, calling ethnic Russians the state-building people, show a different idea. These changes, along with policies promoting Russian culture, suggest that inclusive words don't always match actions. The heavy burden of the Ukraine war has made many young people from minority groups think more about their ethnic identity. Some feel loyal to both their ethnic heritage and Russia, but others, like the Free Buryatia Foundation, openly say, "This is not our war." They feel the conflict serves Moscow's ambitions, not their people. The question of being both a Russian citizen and non-ethnic Russian is a central political question for Russia's future. 8. What comes next? History shows us that all big empires come to an end. The Roman Empire, the British Empire, and even the Soviet Union, which was not so long ago, all ended. So what about the Russian Federation? Will its many parts stay together, or will things change greatly? The Russian Empire and the Soviet Union both broke apart because of big wars, money problems, and people in different regions wanting more freedom. Today, Russia still has many of these issues. It is a very large country with diverse groups. Some people feel that the central government in Moscow takes too much power and too many resources from them. What could happen next? One idea is that Russia might break into many smaller countries. Some groups who want this have even drawn maps of how new independent states might look, often following the current borders of the republics. But this would likely not be peaceful. There could be conflicts over land, valuable resources, and areas where many different groups live together. This path also brings a very big and scary problem. Russia has many nuclear weapons. If the country broke up, who would control these weapons? The world would have to work hard to make sure these weapons are safe and do not fall into the wrong hands. Another idea is that Russia could change through reforms. This would mean that the regions get more real power and freedom. They would have more say in their own laws and cultures. Money from resources would be shared more fairly with the people who live in those regions. This kind of change would need new ways of governing Russia.
It would also likely mean new leaders who believe in giving more power to the regions instead of keeping it all in Moscow. Right now, the people in Russia's 21 republics live in a strange situation. The country says it respects their unique languages and cultures, but in reality, Moscow often takes away their political power and lessens their cultural rights. We have seen how people from these regions die in wars far more than people from big cities like Moscow. It is like a nesting doll. On the outside, each doll is different and colorful, showing the many nations. But when you open them up, inside each one, you find the same thing: the strong will of Moscow. History has shown that big changes can happen quickly, sometimes when no one expects them. What do you think will happen to Russia's republics in the future? Will they stay together, or will they seek their own paths?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.